You know, every 2 years, soon after the primary elections, the dominant party in the state of Idaho gets together for a convention, a statewide get-together for registered Republicans to decide on the approach for the coming year or so. Well, this year, they gathered in Twin Falls for 3 days. A boon to the economy, for sure, to the largest city on the south side of the Snake River Canyon. Well, this convention is where the party adjusts its platforms, and they come up with resolutions as well. Platforms don't establish any laws, but they serve as a guidepost for making laws come the legislative session. Resolutions, kind of like platforms, but a bit more specific and something they would actually like to become law, like soon. For example, a few platform changes approved this past weekend, according to Ruth Brown of Idaho Public Television. On the American Family Platform, we affirm that abortion is murder from the moment of fertilization. All children should be protected regardless of the circumstances of conception, including persons conceived in rape and incest. So no abortions, no exceptions. On the Health and Welfare Platform, everyone getting health care should be able to exercise free power of choice without intervention of any element or force of fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or the other ulterior form of constraint or coercion. So basically, you can't tell me to get a vaccine or coerce me to do so either. They want Republicans to be registered with the party for 1 year before they can vote in the primary. They want to repeal the 16th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which would remove Congress's ability to tax our income. And on the education platform, they want public funding for students going to private schools. They want parents to have the final say on masks and vaccines in said schools. And they oppose social justice indoctrination in any level of public school, which is a lot. Things like CRT, social emotional learning, DEI, replacement theory, queer theory, those kind of things. As for the resolutions, they came into the weekend with 31 of them, printed out and ready for debate. Everything from Idaho's unequivocal support for Israel, that'd be number one, to a resolution to refuse to recognize imaginary identities, which is code for transgender. Again, these resolutions are just that, ideas, written with a lot of whereases and ending with a flourish of we resolve to. And some of them are just that, just kind of ideas and resolutions. American combat troops should not be used as world policemen. Dismissing the Bonneville County Republican Central Committee lawsuit filed by now former GOP chair Tom Luna, who lost to Dorothy Moon over the weekend, so that lawsuit was immediately withdrawn. There's the repeal of the 16th Amendment, which we already brought up, but which obviously Idaho can't do on its own. And they want to only interpret the U.S. Constitution and the Idaho Constitution as textualism and originalism. Some of the others come with the idea they will try to craft some sort of legislation this winter at the State House. They want safer internet access for children. The one against ESG anti-discrimination, the environmental social governance resolution where companies are rated based on those three things, and some believe also extends to individuals, which it doesn't. Several of that have to do with elections, from making municipal elections partisan, to eliminating college IDs as a form of ID to vote, to anti-crossover legislation. Now that resolution has to do with the idea a lot of Democrats jumped over and registered as Republican to disrupt the GOP primary election last May. However, facts and data show otherwise. Of the 13 of the 31 of these resolutions, well, those passed that we can confirm since we can't get a response from Idaho's GOP to see a final list. We also know the resolution declaring the illegitimacy of the 2020 presidential election failed. Maybe you could think of these resolutions this way. Idaho's GOP is kind of like the McDonald's of Idaho policymakers. Much like McDonald's being the first you think of when you think of fast food, Idaho GOP immediately comes to mind when you think about prevalent politics in the Gem State. And these ideas that come out of these conventions, for every filet of fish and McRib, there's the McDonald's pizza and the McDLT. Remember the two-sided styrofoam container with a hamburger patty on one side and the bun, toppings like lettuce and tomato on the other, kept the hot side hot, cold side cold, allegedly? Well, some of these resolutions will be like bad fast food ideas. They eventually will fall flat. So we're going to see where these 13 resolutions go, since they aren't law yet. Resolutions weren't the only thing going on over the weekend. There were also party elections and lots of antics and drama, apparently. One of those who saw it firsthand was former chair of the Twin Falls County Republican Central Committee. Steve Millington was a Twin Falls County delegate to the convention this year, and he told us they had a tremendous turnout. You know, it's as many conventions he's gone to. He said this one, not his favorite. Of the 775 possible delegates, he said 750 of them registered, and attendance was anywhere from 735 to 750 people for every meeting, which is a lot of people. It meant there was a lot going on.
We hate being told what to do. Wear the mask, take the jab, use these pronouns, bake the cake.
there was an awful lot going on, and there was a great deal of angst and I don't know what you want to call it, campaigning for the offices associated with the state Republican Party. It was never ending. Everywhere you went, people were flashing signs and cards and discussing and talking. And so we all knew that that was going to be a real hot topic come Saturday morning when we had the election of officers.
Mr. Chairman, it is my honor to nominate Dorothy Moon.
Would you consider this a good convention?
Good from the standpoint we had outstanding attendance, and there was a great deal of interaction from all of the delegates participating. I don't think anyone felt like they were left out of the process. And so from that standpoint, I thought we had a lot of involvement and a lot of activity.
How do you come out of this convention feeling about the direction of the GOP?
If we listen to the campaign speeches for the office of chairman from Tom Luna and from Dorothy Moon, there was quite a bit of divergence between one's platform and agenda and the other ones. And so I think the interesting thing now is going to be, where is this new Dorothy Moon and her new executive officers? Which direction are they going to move us, and how are they going to get that done? And is that going to be most beneficial long term for the Republican Party?
Unity is not when party members let Democrats stream in and meddle in our primaries and monkey around with our platform.
And one of the things that I kept saying is, people, for heaven's sakes, we got 100,000 new residents coming to Idaho every year. You know that better than I do. Let's not disenfranchise those people. Let's encourage them to become members of the Republican Party and carry our Republican banner throughout the state of Idaho. And some people have this idea that if you aren't a fifth generation Idahoan, you don't belong here.
There's this belief that there was a lot of Democrats crossing over to jump in on the primary this past spring.
Right.
But that's just not the case. I mean, we looked at the numbers from the Secretary of State's office. That didn't happen.
That's exactly right, Brian. That did not happen. And so I think some people have a false sense of concern when they start talking about this crossover thing. Yes, that happens on some small measure, but I don't think we saw 20 or 30 or 50% of the crossover. That's not what happened. And so this idea that we've got to prevent or prohibit people from voting because they might be, quote, crossover voters is just obscene. It doesn't work.
How do you feel, and how do you feel about the way the Republican Party is going? If that's the leadership, and this is what they're saying, even though it's not true, how do you feel about that?
If that becomes one of the anchor points that they want to secure and push in the next 2 years in their leadership, we run the risk, in my opinion, of alienating a lot of people who would otherwise say, I like Republican values and I like Republican ideals, and this is where I want to be associated. And we can't marginalize some small thing and change our entire direction based on a marginal approach to a problem.
We were once the bastion of freedom and liberty in this country. There were states that have surpassed us. And we've got to make sure, with the influx of population coming in, we have to make sure, with the Democrats coming at us with full force, that we have our barriers up, our guns are loaded, and ready to keep this state free.
There also was this part about the abortion and removing any exemption for it.
That we spent over 2 hours debating the abortion issue, and it basically boiled down to 2 phrases that people wanted inserted into the platform. And I kept thinking, get over it, people. We've got it listed right here. We have our rights, we have our legal rights, we have our God-given rights, we have our inalienable rights. And you're asking people to make decisions that's none of your business. Read that statute and then ask yourself, what are we fighting over here?
So, Steve, how do you feel about the direction of the GOP? in Idaho?
Dang you, Brian. I'm a little bit distraught. It was not my best convention. And so I am saying to myself, this is not the end of the world. This is not the end of the road. We can overcome any difficulties that we see coming at us. We will stand firm and regain this high value, high structure of Republican ideals and values. We will continue to elect high quality, solid individuals as Republicans in the state of Idaho. We just need to remember that I think it was Ronald Reagan that says, if I agree with you 80% of the time, you're not my enemy.
Are there a lot more that believe the same way you do, you think?
Boy, I sure hope so, Brian. I really do. And I think there are a lot of people who think that way.
By the way, we did reach out to Brandon Durst from Ada County about this crossover voting resolution, but we have yet to hear back. In fact, Mr. Durst hasn't spoken or agreed to speak to us in quite some time. Mr. Millington told us one of the difficulties facing Idaho's Republican Party because of increasing population and demographics, there are 4 counties who control all of these issues at conventions like this, and that would be Ada, Canyon, Kootenai, and Bonneville. He said you add up the delegation from those 4 counties, and they have close to a majority in these elections. Millington also told us the other 40 counties need to learn to get along and vote together, or, in his words, we're going to get run over. By the way, one of the resolutions that did not pass was a resolution to protect rural representation.